It was one of those mornings that felt heavy, the kind where even the sunlight seemed too tired to break through the gray clouds. A man named David was walking down a busy street in downtown Chicago, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, lost in the whirlwind of bills, deadlines, and life's endless pressures. As he passed the corner of Monroe and State, he noticed a little girl sitting alone on the curb, shivering under a thin jacket that had seen better days. Her eyes were wide and sad, and in that instant, something inside David stopped. He didn't know her. He didn't know her story. And yet, he felt a tug, a quiet, insistent nudge that told him he couldn't just walk by. Without thinking much more, he walked over, knelt beside her, and asked softly, "Hey, are you okay?" The little girl looked up at him, eyes filled with tears, and shook her head. That single, simple exchange, so small in the grand scheme of a bustling city, would set off a chain of events that no one could have imagined. Before we dive into this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below. This is Kindness Story Hub, where we explore how simple acts of compassion can change lives in ways you'd never expect. David crouched beside the girl, trying to keep his voice calm and warm. "What's your name?" he asked. "I'm Emily," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the hum of traffic, and it made his heart tighten. "Do you know where your parents are, Emily?" he asked gently. She shook her head again. That was all it took for David to make a decision. He couldn't leave her alone, not like this. He offered his jacket to her and held her hand as they walked to a nearby cafe, hoping to find some warmth, and maybe a little hope. Inside, the cafe smelled like fresh bread and coffee. The barista, seeing Emily's tiny frame and tear-streaked face, immediately brought over a hot chocolate and a plate of cookies. David sat across from her, trying to coax out a story between sips and crumbs. Emily told him she had run away from home the night before. She didn't feel safe there anymore, and she didn't know where else to go. David listened, really listened, without judgment or rushing her words. He felt the weight of her fear, her loneliness, and her small, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would care. After a long talk, David made another decision. He couldn't just give her a warm drink and leave her to face the world alone. He took out his phone and called a friend who worked at a local shelter. Within an hour, Emily was safely in the care of people trained to help children in crisis. David watched her go, the knot in his chest easing slightly, knowing he had done the right thing. That night, David couldn't sleep. Something about Emily's story lingered, a quiet reminder that even in a city filled with millions of people, one small act of kindness could make a profound difference. But he had no idea that his choice to stop, kneel, and listen would ripple far beyond that chilly morning on Monroe Street. The next week, David received an unexpected message on social media. It was from Emily's older brother, Mark. He wrote, "I don't know who you are, but thank you. You saved my sister. We were lost, and you found her when no one else would. If you ever want to meet, I'd love to thank you in person." David felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't done it for recognition. He hadn't even thought about thanks. But he realized something important. Kindness often doesn't come with applause, yet its impact can echo louder than any words of gratitude. A few days later, David met Mark and Emily in a small park near the shelter. Emily ran into his arms, still clutching the slightly oversized jacket he had given her. She whispered, "Thank you," and for a moment, the world felt quiet, simple, and pure. Mark explained that their family had been struggling silently, financial troubles, arguments, fear, and no one had noticed. David's act had been the catalyst that reminded them someone cared, that they weren't completely invisible. David's story didn't end there. Months later, he received another surprise. Emily, now enrolled back in school and thriving with the support of her teachers and counselors, had written a short essay for her class about kindness. She described the day a stranger stopped to help her, how it changed her life, and how she wanted to pay that kindness forward. Her essay went viral when her teacher posted it online, reaching thousands of people across the country. People shared stories of strangers helping strangers, of small acts that blossomed into something extraordinary. David, meanwhile, returned to his regular life, thinking he had just done a normal human thing: stop, help, listen. But the truth was that one act had inspired countless others to see the power in simple, compassionate choices. Messages poured in from people telling him how Emily's essay encouraged them to help someone in need, volunteer at shelters, or simply pause to check on a friend. One small act had started a movement, and David never expected it. Emily herself became a little ambassador of kindness. She began volunteering at the shelter where she had stayed, helping children who were scared, hungry, or alone. She shared her story in community centers and schools, always ending with the same message: you never know how much a little kindness can change a life. David watched this unfold with a quiet pride, realizing that kindness isn't just an action, it's contagious. One afternoon, David received an invitation he hadn't expected. The local community center was hosting an event called Ripple Effect of Kindness, highlighting stories like his and Emily's. He was asked to speak. Standing on the stage, looking out at a crowd of people who had been touched by acts of generosity, David found his voice. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "I just stopped and cared." But that moment of care changed a life. And that's what kindness does: it starts with one small choice, and sometimes, it grows into something no one could have imagined. The audience erupted in applause, but David didn't need it. He had already seen the most important result: Emily, smiling beside him, safe, confident, and spreading the same compassion she had once received. That's the real reward of kindness: it multiplies, moving quietly through lives until it touches hearts we may never meet. Months turned into years, and David's single act continued to ripple through the community. Teachers reported students helping each other more, strangers began volunteering at local shelters, and neighbors checked on elderly residents more frequently. A little movement, born out of one morning, one jacket, and one conversation, had started to quietly transform a city. Even David himself noticed changes within himself. He began noticing more of life's small moments: the exhausted cashier at the grocery store, the lost tourist asking for directions, the lonely elderly man feeding pigeons in the park. He learned that kindness doesn't have to be dramatic or heroic. It can be a smile, a listening ear, or a helping hand. And each time, the world shifts just a little bit, becoming a better place. One day, Emily came running to him with another small act of her own. She had raised funds to buy winter jackets for children in need, remembering how cold she had been that morning. David helped distribute the jackets, feeling a deep sense of connection not just to Emily, but to the countless people whose lives had been touched indirectly by that first, simple act. A warm jacket, a safe shelter, a listening ear: these things seem small, but their echoes are enormous. In the end, the story of David and Emily reminds us that kindness is never wasted. We live in a busy world, full of distractions, struggles, and invisible battles. But stopping to show care, even in the smallest way, can set off a chain reaction that transforms lives, communities, and even ourselves. One act of kindness might seem insignificant in the moment, but its impact can stretch far beyond our imagination. As the sun sets over Chicago, David often thinks about that gray morning, the little girl on the curb, and the warmth of a shared cup of hot chocolate. He smiles, knowing that a single choice, to notice, to help, to care, can grow into something much bigger than we ever expect. And in a world that often feels hurried and cold, that's a truth worth holding on to. So, if there's one thing to remember from this story, it's this: never underestimate the power of one kind act. Whether it's holding the door for someone, offering a smile, or just listening to someone in pain, your small act can spark a change, touch a life, and maybe even inspire a movement. Kindness has a ripple effect, and it starts with you. The next time you walk past someone who seems invisible, remember David and Emily. Pause. Notice. Help. You never know what miracle might follow. One act of kindness can turn into something no one imagined.